I want you guys to imagine a world where AFCON is looked forward to by everybody around the world just as much as the Euros is, just as much as the Copa America is, because people get the chance to see their favorite players. What we have to realize that starts with is the general um, quality of the way we talk about AFCON, the way we view ourselves as Africans, and the way obviously it's marketed and advertised, improving. But more so than that, I think it starts with how we perform at the World Cup. My Nelson Mandela once said that it always seems impossible until it's done. And Kwame Nkrumah was somebody who believed greatly in the fact that the freedom of one African nation doesn't mean a lot if the other African nations are being controlled and manipulated through neo-colonialism, right? He didn't think of it as anything. That's why he worked so hard to fight for the freedom of lots of other African nations. That's not really what I'm here to talk to you about. Obviously, you've seen the title, and this is why our performance should be worrying. So, I don't know, I was watching YouTube the other day and I realized I chanced upon a video of one England scout who found Michael Olise there. He was a scout for the England national team, actually. And this was around the time when he was in Crystal Palace, I believe. So I think this was in 2022, 2023, there or thereabouts. And they asked him that, to join the England under 20 setup, right, to play for England. And to their surprise, right, he insisted that no, he was going to play for France. And for those of you who aren't aware, Michael Olise qualifies to play for France through like basically a half lineage, right? I mean, it's his lineage all the same, but his dad is Nigerian, his mom is Algerian French, right? So she's like half half, and so that allows him to play for France. He'd been to France a few times in his life. No, actually, I think it was quite more than a few times when he was younger. So he very much considered himself a French footballer. And what I want to highlight is that watching. He grew up watching the likes of Zidane, Marcel Desailly, Michel Platini. He grew up watching all of those guys, and he feels like those are the people he wants to aspire to be like. He wants to be like those people. You know what those people were? Those people, all three of them that I mentioned, they were World Cup winners. Obviously, on our continent, unfortunately, we are still yet to get a World Cup winner, which is in itself a problem. But it's a problem that we believe that will be addressed sooner rather than later, right? But every single World Cup that comes by, that Africa as a whole performs really poorly, is another chance to kind of reinforce the negative stereotypes about us, to ensure that we don't get the publicity by our diasporan brothers and even our brothers in the local country. Somebody might be like a Hafko who was born and raised in Ghana, but you look at both teams, you look at how far England might be going in the World Cup and the rich history they have, all the players that they've accomplished, who've done so much for themselves, right? And he will obviously opt to play for the England national team. You take a look at in the fact that they offered him a clear pathway from under 20 to the national team, and he still declined it. He declined the national team call up for Euro 2024 in hopes and preferred to rather go to the Olympics with France. That's a huge, how shall I say? That's a huge talking point. I really feel as though if Ghana had a better World Cup, right? Maybe if we'd reached the round of 16 and crashed out painfully on penalties, right? Or if we'd got into the quarterfinal and lost after a very competitive game. I really feel as though a lot of players who had recently tried to not accept a Ghana call up would be a lot more open to it. There are several quality options that are available to Ghana. You think of Romeo Lavia, you think of Aid in Heaven, right? There's obviously a lot more, but we have to be very careful with these how we look at these things. And I also like to point out Lamine Yamal. He in an interview he also said that he did feel more attached to Morocco, like as a nation, but he felt as though for his career it would be better to play in the Euros, and that Spain would give him basically like that kind of step that he needed to kind of conquer the world basically. Now, the fact that he felt as though he wouldn't get that with AFCON, and the fact that he wouldn't get that with Morocco, which is one of the fastest rising superpowers in football, is quite concerning, in my opinion. That if a whole Morocco, and this is why I go back to that, I go back to that quote by Nelson Mandela, by Kwame Nkrumah, which said that the freedom of African countries, the freedom of a single African country, means nothing if everybody around it is being puppeteered. And it goes back to this: the quality of one African nation, the extreme quality of one African nation, or two African nations, or three African nations, it doesn't mean anything as long as the other African nations are doing so poorly that their competition is not going to be looked down, is going to continue to be looked down upon. Okay, we need to, as a continent, right? We need to. There's obviously so much corruption that is deep rooted in us as Africans, and I think it's really unfortunate. But we have to find a way to remove said corruption from our system, and we need to ensure that cash is put into the right place in football to ensure that we are able to develop better players, and we are able to do so much better for ourselves when we go out to these competitions. AFCON is incredible, right? I think we can all agree that it's on par with a lot of the competitions that we watch that are broadcasted to many more places. But when the chance comes to play against these people, we need to show up and we need to show out. Okay, Morocco are playing France tomorrow, and they are odds on to lose. A lot of Africans would rather Morocco. A lot of people would rather Morocco lose than win, and then say that this one is for Morocco. We are not Africans, blah blah blah, right? And that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But my point is that we have been put in this unfortunate position of not knowing who to support anymore at the World Cup, and relying on allegiances of the clubs that we like, of people who the women find attractive, and so they've kind of like pushed everybody's algorithm towards seeing those people who really basically towards those people, right? And we just have to reach the position where we can continue to support one of our own. Cape Verde have taken a massive step. Capo Verde, sorry, they've taken a massive step in doing that, right? But you have to understand that they did that for them, right? Saying that they did that for them is different, because even though they showed the world that we can compete at that stage, that was because nobody expected them to. Ghana have been in that position where nobody expects us to compete for the last 16 years, right? This is not our first World Cup. We as a country, we shouldn't be involved in those kind of conversations. We shouldn't be in. Nobody expected us to get this far by now. After reaching the quarterfinal in 2010, it's unacceptable that this is our first time in 16 years that it has taken us to qualify out of a group, right? And we did it with 4 points as a best third place team. That's still unacceptable, right? I mean, I understand that you have to do what you have to do to qualify, but I think that for a country like us, who were able to reach the knockout stages in back-to-back World Cups, reach the quarterfinals, to not qualify from the group stages, to not qualify for the World Cup at all, right? We are further strengthening all these stereotypes about African football, that we don't know how to manage ourselves, that we don't know how to grow our players, and that we don't play good football. It's up to us. Only us can change this, right? And this World Cup, I'm telling you, would have made a massive, massive step towards changing this. Congo as well, it's their first World Cup in 52 years, right? The fact that they reached the round of 32 and were able to hold on to England for 75 minutes or so, right? They have done enough for themselves. But when you put all of these performances together, right, there are a lot of serious disappointments inside that need to be talked about and that need to do better. You think of Tunisia going home with 0 points, unacceptable. You think of the fact that Senegal, a team that we had been begging for it to be African champions ahead of Morocco, you came in and you lost 2 goals against a very poor Belgian side, right? In a matter of seconds, terrible. Egypt as well. Egypt is their first time in the knockout stage as well, so we can be as hard on them as we like. But again, they are not the countries that are supposed to be in this position to push our name further and further. The only country that is in a that is and has been and continues to push the name of Africa a, in like the best position possible. A lot of them don't consider themselves African. That's Morocco. Apart from Morocco and Egypt, not a single African country made it out of the round of 32. Okay, so I think we have a lot of work to do, and I think you should be very concerned with the fact that African football has not really been put in the best light at this World Cup. Right, it's extremely disappointing, and we have to make sure that we do something about it. As always, that's all from me. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, share the video. Don't forget to pray for the women in Afghan and all the people in Gaza, right? People be going through a lot these days. Yeah, continue to thank God for your life and whatnot. I'll see you all later. There's a lot of hope for us. Don't let the fact that I've said all this make you think that we are not able to compete at the biggest level we can. There's just a lot that we need to fix. All right, thanks.